Alright guys, I'm really excited to make this video because it's pertaining to one of my absolute favorite foods. It's cold outside right now. Probably not when this video comes out. For reference, this video was recorded probably about early mid-December. And we're talking about chili, but if you're anything like me, chili is a food that can be eaten at any time of year. I love chili no matter if it's in the middle of summer or in the dead of winter. It's a great comfort food, great for a rainy day, so when this video comes out, it'll still apply. One of my most favorite things about chili is this, what I would consider an inclusive food item. What I mean by that is you can make it any kind of way and it'll still be right, unlike a lot of other recipes where if you don't follow the traditional steps to make a dish, it is considered wrong. There's all different kinds of chili, and there's really no wrong way of making it. So if someone tells you that your chili is wrong, it pretty much means you can't cook. Because it's hard to screw up a chili. No matter how hard you try, it's really hard to screw up chili. And if you do, and you're watching this video, back away from the stove. Still love you. Just get away from it. And you may be wondering, since we're making chili today, what on earth is this big honking piece of meat doing here? It's simply because my favorite chilies growing up were made with a combination of both ground beef and chunks of beef, like this, from like a London broil. This is a chuck roast. It adds to the texture, it adds to the flavor, it gives it a little more meatiness and beefiness. So I'm going to show this way to you because honestly, to this day, I'll eat a 50-50 chunk beef, ground beef chili over just a plain ground beef chili. To me, it just tastes better. There's something special about it. So let's stop talking and get started making chili. Also, we're not going to be using any prepackaged box chili seasoning, so if you already thinking about grabbing that, put that away. We have our own chili seasoning that we've made from scratch. We're not using any pre-cooked beans. We got some raw beans, some tomato products, so let's get started. Before we start preparing any other part of this dish, we're going to go ahead and start seasoning our chuck roast. All we're going to be doing is giving it a nice dose of kosher salt on both sides, some ground black pepper, and some garlic powder. I want to treat it like a steak. Salt, pepper, garlic powder, both sides. Alright, and once we're done with this, I'll meet you at the stove. And if you guys are looking for a simple way of making a really flavorful chili, this is going to be right up your alley. This is going to be a one-pot recipe, but this is going to be the very best one-pot chili you'll ever have. So what I have in this pot is just some good olive oil that's getting hot, and we're just going to go ahead and lay in our chuck roast, and we're going to sear it. We're looking to get color. We're not going to cook it all the way through. We're just going to go ahead and sear it on both sides, maybe 2 to 3 minutes on each side, and then we're going to take it out and move on to our next step. All right, it's been 3 minutes. I'm going to give this sucker a flip. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. That's what you want to see. A nice, good sear. Alright, so we're going to let this roll for another 3 minutes. It's also going to develop some of that amazing pan fond. It's going to add some flavor to the bottom of your pan, which that's going to be essential in making a delicious one-pot meal. So we're going to give this another 3 minutes and take her out. Alright. Alright, now what we're going to do, if I can get it off, that is, I'm going to take this out of the pan. I'm going to put it on a clean cutting board. Alright. And next thing we'll do is start browning off our ground beef. What I have here is 2 1/4 pounds of ground beef that I've seasoned with a teaspoon of kosher salt, a teaspoon of ground black pepper, and 2 teaspoons of onion powder. And we're going to let this sear off. Alright, we've got a good brown going on. I'm going to flip that beef. There we go. And we want to sear the other side up. Then we want to crumble it. Alright, this beef is all nice and seared off, so I want to give it a flip. And guys, it already smells amazing in here. Just to have that chuck roast and that ground beef just searing off with all those seasonings, it smells fantastic. And now we're going to put aside our spoon and bring out our friend, the potato masher. Because like I demonstrated in my pub food video where I made the chili cheese fries, we're going to make it in a similar fashion. You want to get this ground beef a little bit finer, so that way we have a lot of ground beef in every bite. We don't want to have these rocks and clusters of thick beef. We want chunks of big beef in these little ground crumbles in between, so that way we have a really satisfying, really meaty bite. So I gave it a few turns, and we're going to let it cook for a couple minutes more, and then we're going to do some more turns, and then we're going to get this thing cooked out. Oh yeah, and that's done. So we want to get this ground beef out, and we'll move on to our next step. Alright, you see all that right there? That is where we're going to be cooking our veggies in. So let's go ahead and get started. I have 2 tablespoons of minced garlic and 1/2 teaspoon of red chili flakes. I've got 1 jalapeno that I've diced and seeded. I seeded the jalapeno because we got other sources of heat, and I don't want to make this inedible. So right now we're just building flavor here. And what we're going to do is we're going to ground all this off. And the last thing I added was just a tablespoon of onion powder. We're kind of picky eaters around here when it comes to onions. And the last couple things I cooked with real onion turned out a little too oniony. So we can control the flavor better with a little bit of onion powder. So we want to let this brown off. And because I'm both fat and impatient, I went ahead and I tried some of that ground beef because it was smelling so good. And my God, it is phenomenal. You guys are going to love this. I'm getting some color here. So we're about to start making our sauce. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add in a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. Really doesn't matter what kind. We're not making Italian food, so I'm not really going to suggest San Marzano, because we have a lot of meat and we still haven't added beans yet. We're going to add in 1 12-ounce can, a 15-ounce can rather, of tomato sauce, because we do need liquid here. I'm going to add back our cooked ground beef. Put that back in the mix here. And to this, we're going to mix that in real quick. Get all this in there. We're going to start adding our beef stock. Now this is a low sodium beef stock. What we're going to do is we're just going to add that liquid in there. We want to cover all that beef. And now that we've done that, we're going to add in 1 pound of dried kidney beans. Now guys, if you don't have beef stock, you can always substitute with water. But beef stock's going to give you that extra meaty punch that you're looking for. And then we're going to add in half of our chili seasoning. And in this bowl is 3 tablespoons of chili powder, regular chili powder, 2 tablespoons of cumin, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of ground pepper, 1 teaspoon of cayenne, and additionally 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. I'm going to add half of that in. I think I might have also mentioned it's got 1 teaspoon of garlic and 1 teaspoon of onion powder in there as well. So we're going to stir that up. Make sure our flavors are nice and incorporated. Alright, and once we do that, we're going to add in just a little bit more beef stock. And then we're going to bring this up to a boil. Alright, so our chili here has achieved a good boil. We're going to give this sucker a stir. It smells nice. It does smell like a really good chili, y'all. Alright, and so while this was boiling away, what I did with the chuck roast was I cut it up into some nice little cubes. I'm going to put that in now. That's going to help break down that, I'm going to call this a steak because I'm treating it like a steak. It's going to help break down these large bits, help that chuck roast steak cook down. I just hit my camera with my knife. Alright, and now we're going to go ahead and immediately turn this heat down to medium. Alright, now you might be wondering why I did not include the chuck roast in the boiling part of this, and that is because chuck roast in general is not a super tender cut of meat. So if we went ahead and boiled everything with the chuck roast, it would not have had time to break down the muscle fibers that are in there. When it comes to something like a chuck roast or a rump roast or a bottom round steak, stuff like that, you need to make sure that, especially in this sort of application, that you cook it low and slow over an extended period of time to properly break down those muscle fibers. Because if I had boiled that chuck roast with the ground beef and all the veggies and such, it was going to become tough. And texture does count for a lot in food. And a tough steak bit in this chili right here would have taken a 5-star chili down to a 2. Also, if you haven't noticed, I added in the last little bit of my chili seasoning. Adding a little more beef stock. Oh, what the hell, I'm going to add the rest of it. So this takes about 4 cups of beef stock. Because what's going to happen is it's going to reduce a lot. So I'm going to make sure all my steak pieces are pushed down. We're going to put a lid on this, and it's going to simmer, just like it is, for an hour and a half over medium heat. But I'll see you guys again when this sucker has about 30 minutes left on it. Do not forget to stir occasionally. Alright, see you guys in about an hour. Alright guys, we are at that critical 30-minute phase left on our chili, and it smells absolutely amazing just simmering away over here. So this brings us to our next step. If you have chili, you're going to need cornbread. Now, cornbread to me is my go-to whenever I have chili. I know some people eat it with tortilla chips, and I love it that way too. Some people eat it over rice. Now, I don't get that per se, but whatever strikes your fancy. I didn't really do anything too much here. I was going to show you guys a true blue from scratch way to make this cornbread. But my cornbread that I had in the cabinet expired. So when I went out to the Dollar General to get some things, they were out of all of their cornmeal products too. So what this is 2 boxes of Jiffy cornbread mix. 1 box in each bowl, made per package instructions. But we're going to do something a little different. In my opinion, the best cornbread always has honey in it. I don't know what it is, but when you put honey in certain items, it's just something extra that happens. So we're shooting for about a teaspoon of honey. We're going to put about a teaspoon of honey in each one. Not too much. We're not trying to candy it. We're just trying to give it some of that extra good flavor. Because, again, that honey cornbread is just phenomenal. Alright. Now, you might be wondering why I have 2 different bowls of cornbread mix here. And that's because we're making two different kinds. This is just going to be the regular honey cornbread, and this is going to be my jalapeno cornbread. Now, my wife won't eat this one. But my favorite cornbread is that honey jalapeno cornbread you get at certain restaurants. I don't know if you guys remembered the video where I did the brisket mac and cheese. It was that restaurant where I got that mac and skillet. They serve it with jalapeno cornbread. And that cornbread was sweet, a little tangy. So that's just one fresh jalapeno that I diced real thin and seeded. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to pour these guys into some baking pans and set it in the oven on 400 degrees for about 20 minutes. And by the time 20 minutes is up, the chili will be ready and we'll be ready to dig in. See you then. Alright, it feels like forever, but our chili is finally done. And will you take a look at that? Is that not the most beautiful bowl of chili you have ever seen? You don't need to add any cornstarch or any masa flour to it, because when you boil those beans together in the mix like that, any kind of bean, like any kind of dried legume, it has a lot of starch, and those starches release directly into the water you're boiling them in, creating a thickening agent of its own. This looks to be about perfect. It smells amazing. And this is our carefully crafted jalapeno cornbread. Now guys, I want to try to make another batch of this in a from scratch version so you guys can have it. But this will do in a pinch. Let's go ahead and take a taste of it right now. Remember, all this is just a Jiffy cornbread mix with a little honey and some jalapeno. That is 110% the flavor profile that I was looking for. I don't know about you guys and your chili habits, but one of my favorite things to do is to top it with just a little shredded cheese. This is Fiesta blend. You can use whatever kind you like. Now, if you want to put some sour cream on it, you go for it. I'm not going to judge you for it. Well, maybe a little. But, I mean, I don't like sour cream, but you guys do whatever you want, whatever you like. Now it's time to go in and test it. This is the real deal, y'all. A little everything in there. Oh my God. This is so good. No lie. You don't need anything else. I brought this up because a lot of times I'll add this to chili to give it a little extra something. But this has it right here. Alright guys, that's it for me. Go ahead and try this way of making chili. You won't regret it. Love you guys. See you next time. Have a good night.